In today's episode, we talk about Ojas. Ojas is such a unique concept. What is Ojas? What happens to Ojas in someone who thinks they're a night owl? What causes low Ojas and how can you improve Ojas? Dr. Marianne Teitelbaum graduated from Palmer College of Chiropractic in 1984. In the late 1990s, she began a 17-year one-on-one internship with Vaidya Ramakant Mishra, an award-winning herbal formulator who hails from a 5,000-year-old family lineage of Raj Vaidyas treating the royalty of India. During this internship, Vaidya taught her how to create formulations for every problem in the world. Her first book, Ayurveda and the Thyroid Gland, Natural Treatments to Heal Hypothyroidism, Hyperthyroidism, and Hashimoto's, was published in 2019. She runs an extremely busy Ayurvedic practice treating all diseases by addressing her patients' imbalances and teaching them Ayurvedic techniques. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, I'm Deepa, light functional medicine practitioner, author and yogini, and you're listening to the Sleep Whisperer podcast, the only sleep podcast with conversations and meditations. I'm on a mission to share profoundly insightful sleep conversations with global visionaries that merge together functional medicine and ancient wisdom. Breathe in bliss through weekly guided meditations and let yourself enter the land of dreams. Together, let's unravel the pieces, get to the roots, and understand the right tools to transform your sleep completely. Through this podcast, I want you to dream the best version of yourself. It's time to regain hope and begin your sleep journey.
Dr. Marianne Teitelbaum, I hope I got your name correct. It's such a pleasure to host you on the Sleep Whisperer podcast today. And today we're talking about how Ojas plays a role in sleep. And I know that you have a wonderful intersection of bringing together science and ancient wisdom, which is what I know you'll come into today, even in the context of Ojas. First of all, I think I just want to share with our listeners a quick background about how you came into this space of interweaving science and ancient wisdom of Ayurveda. So, if you could just share a little bit about yourself before we go into Ojas itself.
At a very young age, I was very interested in learning meditation and interested in knowledge coming from India. So when I was 19 years old, and I'm 68 now, I started on a very good program of transcendental meditation, and it led me to the TM City program, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, yoga, meditation, pranayam. And then in 1984, I started studying Ayurveda once I graduated college, chiropractic college, and became a doctor. And then on top of that, I was very fortunate that Vaidya Ramakant Mishra, who has a 5,000-year-old lineage of Shankavasya Ayurveda, came to America, and he actually started to train me. I was the first doctor he trained, and he trained me in both the ancient knowledge, and then he said in modern times, people like to verify that with research. So together we saw hundreds of patients together over a 20-year period of time. And during that time, he made lots of formulas for me to use, which I still have over 500 formulas, and we'll talk about some of those. And he taught me how to treat all the serious diseases as well as just general diet and daily routine.
So, for somebody who may be new to the term Ojas, Dr. Marianne, maybe you could just start by just telling us what exactly is Ojas in a broad perspective, and then we could go a little deeper into how it plays a role in sleep itself.
Okay, Ojas is a compound that once you swallow the food, you take it through the digestive tract. First, the ancient doctors of India said that all diseases begin with digestion. So when you take on a patient, start there. The problem in this modern day and age is digestion becomes impaired from too many pharmaceuticals. And we can talk about that later. But at any rate, as the food goes through the digestive tract, it has to break down into smaller and smaller particles to come out of there and absorb into the bloodstream. Once it's in the bloodstream, it spends 3 to 5 days in each of the 7 tissues: the blood plasma, the blood, muscle, fat, bone, bone marrow, and the reproductive fluids. In between each tissue, there's a transformation that occurs. And in that transformation, a little bit of ojas is made, and a little bit is made to the next, in between each of those 7 gaps. And then at the end, after the reproductive fluid is made, an ojas is also made. And ojas is semi-vibrational, although more vibrational, but it is a physical thing. It's semi-unctuous, and meaning a little oily, and it gets produced from soma. We'll talk about that too. That's an important thing, because I think you not only need to know what ojas is, but if you know the theory behind how it's produced, then you'll know how to keep your levels of ojas up. Ojas is our neurotransmitters, our hormones, and it's also been described as the lamp at the door, meaning that it connects our inner self with the outer cosmos, which is important. And the reason that's important is because if you look at how the cosmos progresses, it starts with the vibration of Ah. Ah collapses through sound to Om. From Om, that is called the Adi Tattva, the silence. But that silence progresses into diversity, from point into infinity, from silence to dynamism, in that moment of Ah going to Om. So that's the Adi Tattva, the silence. And then there's 3 tattvas. This is prana. Prana is soma, from the lunar vibrations from the moon, Agni from the sunlight, and Marut from the etheric energy. Then that progresses to come into, that forms what are called the Panch Mahabhutas, the 5 elements. So soma is liquid, earthy, liquid and earth. It's earth and it's heavy. It's liquid and heavy earth. Agni is fire and water, and the Marut is space and air. That comes into our bodies now. So this is outside of our bodies. When it comes into our bodies, it forms Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Now, most of the modern texts start with Vata, Pitta, Kapha. So my teacher's lineage went all the way back to that vibration of Ah and then Om, transforming eventually into prana. And it's important to understand these 3 aspects of prana: soma, Agni, and Marut, because ojas is made from the soma. So that's important to remember. Soma, again, comes from the lunar energy, from the moonlight. So we need a good night's sleep in order to make this soma. And the sun isn't there at night. There's no radiation from the sun. So there's less of a chance that Agni will burn the soma, because that can happen. And at night, you have the lunar energy. So during your sleep, you're building up soma, which gets converted to ojas. Ojas gives you great strength, immunity to disease, and lots of stamina. And it's a very blissful micromolecule that travels through the body. And within the molecule of soma is the prana. And that pranic energy is giving intelligence to all your cells. And it's not only keeping us alive, it's giving us intelligence. So what this means, something like cancer, the cells are there, but they've lost their intelligence. So once they lose their intelligence, they can't communicate anymore with each other, and then they start growing things like tumors. So ojas is important for preventing serious diseases like cancer. Also, if you had something like COVID, it would help you to fight it better. So you want great strength, immunity, and you also higher states of consciousness and blissfulness with ojas.
And I think, Dr. Marian, two things came into my mind when you were talking about this. One is, of course, the importance of how we can digest our food, because in order to produce the ojas. And two was, you brought a very interesting point about how in sleep at night, when Agni cannot burn, is when we can produce ojas. And I just want you to clarify about, there's so much contradictory information out there today about somebody being the night owl and sleeping at late into the night. What are your thoughts in the context of ojas? As do we need to be sleeping at similar hours when there's darkness, when there's moonlight? Or does it matter that we just get a certain number of hours? Because there's so much about somebody can get the same hours, they can be more productive, maybe they're night owls. Personally, I don't resonate with that, but I'd love to know what you think.
No, it's absolutely incorrect knowledge about being a night owl. What it means is that they've lost touch with the rhythms of nature. They're out of touch because the ancient doctors stated specifically in their texts that human beings were made to be asleep when the sun goes down and awake when the sun comes up. If anything, the modern lighting and computers are disturbing our sleep because now we can stay up later. But before there was lighting, artificial lighting, I'm sure people went to sleep when the sun went down. But because we can stay awake, what happens is we would actually feel very tired if the sun went down and we had no stimuli, nothing to stimulate our creative minds. But because we have artificial lighting, computers, we can stay up. But if we allowed ourselves to get sleepy, we would be very sleepy and fall asleep probably around 8:30 or 9 o'clock. But it's very easy to stay up and you get a second wind. The second wind is your adrenal glands pumping cortisol, epinephrine, adrenaline, the thyroid gland pumping its hormones. It doesn't take very much to throw you out of balance in that way. Then you go to bed late and then you wake up late and then you start to lose that rhythm of nature. So it's imperative, because there's also times of day, the dinacharya, which means from 10 at night to 2 in the morning, the liver detoxifies the body. So if you're asleep, all the detoxification works well, the channels are open and all the detox goes out correctly. If you're awake into that time zone, it upsets not only the detoxification system, the liver system, the digestive system, but the immune system too, because your ojas is going to go low now. And also your adrenal and thyroid glands are going to get very weak because they need rest. They're like the batteries that we run on. If we continue to stay awake into the night, they can do it, but then you'll start to wear them out. And I would say the majority of the patients I see have adrenal exhaustion. I haven't seen anyone yet who hasn't in my 20 some years or 40 some years of practice.
You did talk about how in sleep we produce ojas, and we need to be sleeping when the moon is out there. But does having depleted ojas itself impact our ability to sleep? For example, if somebody is low in ojas, does that mean they struggle with sleep challenges? And also, if you could just clarify what might make somebody low in ojas.
That is true what you said. You start to develop a vicious cycle. You have to break it. The vicious cycle happens because ojas supports and it sustains very deep, nourishing sleep. So then when we push ourselves beyond the limit, we start depleting ojas, and then it becomes harder to get good sleep. And then we deplete it more and more. But there are other things, like you just mentioned, that do deplete ojas. If we over-exercise, if the diet isn't malnourishing enough. I see a lot of people, they're saying we should be fasting and we should be vegans. And no, vegan diet, there's no ghee in the diet, there's no milk. Milk is the number one most somogenic food. So we need milk, yogurt, we need ghee. These foods they're full of soma, but the soma has to be made into ojas. And to do that, we need Agni. So we need some digestive fire. So that means with the milk, we have to boil it. and put some spices, cardamom, cinnamon, turmeric, black pepper to help you digest it. So, but also lots of people nowadays are fasting. So the vata goes high. Then when we get vata aggravated and we're moving, too much movement of thoughts through the mind, too much agitation, the ojas will go low. Or if we're bleeding too much, if the menstrual cycle's too heavy, or we're dehydrated, or we have too much sexual activity, because the reproductive fluids also produce ojas at the end. So we have to think of all those things and keep a balance in our life so our ojas doesn't go low.
Dr. Marianne, how would we know if we have low ojas? Are there specific signs that maybe we are, of course, maybe not sleeping, but what are some of the other signs that we would know that we are low in ojas?
You would feel extremely exhausted. And that's the main complaint that I hear from people. I'm so tired. Everyone tells me that. Also, your immune system would be low. You would be picking up little colds. You just walk by someone and you catch a cold, those types of things, but mainly exhaustion and weakness of your immunity. There's other things too, but they're the two main things we see a lot of.
Could we talk about how we can rebuild our ojas and what are some of the practical ways that we could, even if we are not working with somebody, what are some of those core foundational basics that we can do to help us rebuild? Of course, I would definitely assume that we shouldn't be doing some of the things you highlighted earlier as the cause, for example, overwork, over exercising, or depleting ourselves. But what are those specifics that we can do? Consume milk, of course.
Well, just like the ancient doctors of India said, all diseases begin with digestion. When I first opened my practice 40 years ago, I had learned Ayurveda. I knew all the Sanskrit, and I was thinking I'm going to be balancing Soma, Agni, Marut, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, cleansing the patients of their Ama and Amavisha. What it turned out to be, in truth, in this modern era, is that just about every patient I see has taken some pharmaceuticals, whether they're antibiotics, birth control pills, more so here in America, vaccines, acid reflux medicines, steroids. These deplete the gut microbiome, the friendly bacteria in the gut. That friendly bacteria has to break your food down so you can absorb it. You need the most absorption of the nutrients into the bloodstream so you can go through the 7 tissues and make ojas. So we always have to start at square one. So with every patient I see, we have to fix their digestion because just about everyone has been on 1 or 2 of those, sometimes long term too. So, and it's okay if someone needs steroids for a long time, or maybe they need to be on and off antibiotics for some infection. You have to continue to fix the gut in different ways. And that's where, the Ayurvedic doctors come in, where we can show you how to do that. But see, milk is the number 1 most vata pacifying, because if vata goes high, it burns the ojas. It's the most vata pacifying food, and it's so full of soma. But a lot of the patients I see can no longer digest it, because once digestion becomes impaired with these pharmaceuticals, the protein and gluten and dairy are the 2 most difficult to digest. So they're the first to go. People will tell me, I want to be vegetarian, or I am vegetarian, and I don't have milk in my diet. And I said, well, do you have yogurt? No, I can't tolerate it. Do you have ghee? No, I can't. So that's a big issue, because the ancient doctors said you need animal protein every day. So if you're a vegetarian, you're getting it from milk and milk products. So this is a real big issue I see in my practice. So first, we have to fix the person's digestion, show them the good milk and the correct way to take it. And then the ojas will come up. Also teach them about ghee, different types of ghee, like cultured ghee. The molecules of fat are smaller and they get absorbed better. Also, in this modern age, the electromagnetic frequencies from computers, cell phone towers are burning the ojas because they're agneya, they're agni, and they're mixing in with the prana that comes into our body, the soma, agni, and marut. they're polluting it, just like other things can be polluted. The space and air element is polluted. And we need that soma from the prana to transform into ojas. So again, same thing. We're on computers now. We're burning some ojas as we speak. So we have to use it, but then we have to learn how to mitigate those factors. So if you're on computers a lot during the day, you need to get outdoors in nature and reconnect with the earth, because the earth is soma, earth and water. So outside are the elements of kapha. The computer's more, like I say, very polluted prana. So you can sit up against a tree. Trees have lots of earthy soma in them. You can wrap your arms around the tree. You could actually sit directly on the earth or put your feet directly on the earth without shoes on, because the rubber soles in the shoes will prevent the healing electrons from the earth coming in. So it's called kind of like grounding. Because all this pranic energy, it's electromagnetic radiation that's running our bodies, but it's pure from nature, and the computer's not so pure. Also, some people I see are very thin already. They're very Vata types, and their diet is very depleted, and they're jogging, and they're exercising too much. So maybe it would be better just to go for walks, but not jogging, and don't over-exercise. Sometimes we tend to overdo good things like that. And then learn how to slow down and eat warm cooked food, and put spices in your food to help transform that food into components that can be absorbed into the cells. So those are some of the things. But the main thing is slow down, learn what Vata is, learn how to balance it, and protect yourself if you're on computers, and fix your digestion so you can come back to having milk, yogurt, and ghee.
Beautiful, Dr. Marianne. And in fact, when you spoke about being in nature as a way that we can offset the damaging effect of working on our computer, because sadly, most of us are working on the computer a lot these days. And just this afternoon, my husband said, let's go on a little trek in nature. And we did that. And I came back feeling so relaxed. And all we did was just walk around for an hour or so in nature, in the hills. And it's beautiful that you linked that to something as powerful as countering these ill effects of the computer. So I know that we don't have too much of time, but I would love for you to maybe give us maybe a recipe using milk, some way we can have it, something that we can do, of course, once we can digest it. And also, if you could clarify a little bit about what's the kind of milk, because of course this podcast has listeners all over the world. In fact, most of the listeners are in the US. So I have US clients who are always confused because they don't always have access to fresh farm dairy. Like I have a farm next door and we get fresh dairy, but sometimes they're always saying, well, there's no such thing. So what's the best form they can look out for, and maybe a way to have it?
Yeah, so there's several issues here. So first step, fix your digestion. Second step, when you milk a cow and you let the milk sit, the cream rises to the top. That's called non-homogenized milk. So look for that. Second step is that the cows should be eating grass. When they're eating grains, which more than 90%, at least in the United States, are eating grains, they make omega-6s, which is inflammatory. When they're eating grass, they make omega-3s. It's a type of fat that's very anti-inflammatory. It's very good for you. So make sure that the grass comes, or the cow's milk is from grass-fed cows. Now, if you can find this, it's a little more difficult to find, but it's getting more popular because people are demanding it, is the A2 milk. So all animal milk, whether it's goat's milk, buffalo milk, camel milk, even human breast milk is A2. It's a protein that's very easy to digest. The cow's milk used to be A2, but they got so genetically modified through the years that their milk is now A1. And it won't say on the carton, but it will be A1. Now that people are finding out that A2 is much more easy to digest, many people who think they have a lactose intolerance find they can digest the A2 milk. So people are demanding it. So more and more farmers are, changing their cattle so that they can, or their cows, so that they can become, A2. So, but get whatever you can, but you always want whole milk. Don't get skimmed. Don't let them process it so much. Once you get the milk, though, you have to boil it. Milk is full of soma. So if you drink it right from the refrigerator, cold, it will make ama. It'll clog all the physical channels, which will breed infection. You don't want to clog the body's channels that carry urine, blood, tears, sweat, lymphatic fluids. We want them to be nice and open. So you have to boil the milk because, again, the soma has to be converted into ojas. And the way that happens is with Agni. That's why Agni is in the prana. The Agni is fire. So you want to boil the milk, put some spices. Spices have some Agni too. And the spices we recommend are cardamom pods, because they help you digest the protein in the milk, and cinnamon stick. That helps you digest the sugar in the milk. You can add some turmeric because the fat in the milk delivers the turmeric in the cells. Those are the main spices, but other spices could be used too if you want black pepper. But you bring it to a boil, either drink it on an empty stomach, or you could cook it into grains, because milk is very fussy. It only mixes well with grains, dried fruits, and nuts. So not fresh fruits. So you wouldn't be making smoothies with milk, with ice cold, like strawberries or something. Now, if you can't digest cow's milk, do the same with the goat's milk. Goat's milk, you don't have to worry about if it's A2, it's always A2. You don't have to worry about the homogenization issue because there's not enough fat to rise to the top. So, and you don't have to worry about that grass-fed issue either. So, but the same rules apply. You have to boil it with some spices and either cook it into a grain or have it on an empty stomach because it absorbs quickly and it makes ojas immediately. Then the molecules of fat and calcium in the goat's milk are smaller. So it's good for digestion. If your digestion is weak, it's good for your absorption because there's less work your digestive system has to do to gather those nutrients into your cells. So those are the two best types of milk if you can get it.
Any final words about ojas and sleep, Dr. Marianne?
There's other things that can burn it as well, like too much grief. Sometimes we have a little grief, but if the grief is continuing for too long, then we have to take measures to help us overcome it. And, again, starvation. So many people are intermittent fasting. Maybe where you are, people can do it, but here in the States, it's too stressful here. They're already on a treadmill all day long. People don't understand good diet, so they're malnourished, even though they're overweight. The better thing would be to have very nourishing, warm cooked meals cooked at home. And then, you can make more ojas yourself. When you eat out, you're using vegetable oils, which are very bad for your health. Even the good Indian vegetarian restaurants, they're using corn oil and others. Even here, we have a chain called Whole Foods Market. They use canola oil. And canola, when you heat it, forms a poison and damages the liver and clogs the arteries. So I would say just be careful with your diet and your bedtime. Those were the two important things the ancient doctors said. If you have those really good early bedtime, no later than 10, and a very wholesome diet, then whatever other stresses are coming that want to deplete the ojas, you could have more of a foundation to handle them. But if the diet is depleted, and then on top of that, you're intermittent fasting and starving yourself, then your ojas is going to go real low. So keep that in mind as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Marianne. Could you please share where people can go to learn about your work, maybe buy your book? And I know your book just arrived for me yesterday, and I've started reading it.
Okay, so my book is available on Amazon. It's called Healing the Thyroid with Ayurveda. And we see overseas patients as well as patients in the United States and Canada. Just go to my website, DRM Teitelbaum, TEITELBAUM.com, and it will direct you there how to make appointments. Or on my website, I also have classes and videos that I make. The videos are also on my YouTube channel, Dr. Marianne Teitelbaum. And in there, I have gems of knowledge that were imparted to me from my Ayurvedic teacher.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today. And we'll link all the links to your YouTube channel and to your website in the show notes. But thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with all of us today. Ojas is a subtle concept, one that might need the guidance of a skilled Ayurvedic practitioner. Can scroll down the show notes and go to Dr. Marianne's clinic. In my own book, How to Sleep Better, the miraculous 10-step protocol to recharge your mind and body, I've also gone into the intersection of science and ancient wisdom. If you need curated protocols and deep level understanding on rebalancing your whole body, I have a fully scripted, curated course called the Healing Digestion Course at www.ohahealth.com. Have a great day.
This podcast is intended to provide helpful and informative material on the subject matter covered in the episodes. The podcast is not acting in the capacity of a doctor or a registered dietitian and is not rendering any professional healthcare or medical service. The information in the podcast is not intended as a substitute for medical advice or services or as treatment or cure for any particular health condition. The advice and tools contained herein may not be suitable for your situation. Any medical questions regarding contraindications and cautions or any questions on whether or not to proceed with any practices provided in the show should be referred to qualified health professionals before adopting the same. The podcast specifically disclaims any responsibility for any liability, loss, risk, personal or otherwise, which may be incurred as a direct or indirect consequence of the use of information from this podcast or the application, adoption of any of the information provided.